Hello, today I will be talking about a reading comprehension strategy called mental imagery. What kid doesn't love to watch his or her favorite YouTuber, TV show, or movie? Kids today are being bombarded with many different types of media and visual images. Kids absolutely love it. Even though this is the case, visual imagery doesn't always transfer to reading and help kids with comprehension. There are some kids who struggle with reading comprehension and need to be taught how to create mental images in their brains. This strategy is used to improve reading comprehension and it is called mental imagery. One article I read defined mental imagery as the process of forming mental pictures of objects or events not present to the eye that can later affect recall and comprehension. A second article compared mental imagery to the phrase the mind's eye to help explain the hard concept of taking what we read and turn it into pictures in our head. A student-friendly definition I like is creating brain movies in your head as you read. When students are taught to create pictures in their head as they read, it helps them comprehend and understand the complex information they sometimes read. I read 3 great research articles on mental imagery. The first research article I read was titled Training the Mind's Eye, Brain Movies Support Comprehension and Recall by Donna Wilson. The brain can be considered the mind's eye by turning what we read into brain movies. This teaches students that comprehending what you read is an active process. It also mentions that you can do mental imagery with both fiction and nonfiction stories. The two research studies were mentioned in this article. One study was done with first graders and third graders. The students who were taught the mental imagery strategy comprehended more of what they read than the students who were told just to think about what they read. The second research study was similar, except it involved fourth graders and fifth graders. One group of students were taught mental imagery. The second group was told that they could use any strategy they wanted to comprehend what they read. Both groups read an article with inconsistencies and picked out anything that was unclear or hard to understand. The results of this study showed that the students who used mental imagery found more inconsistencies in the article. The second article I read was titled Using Mental Imagery Across the Curriculum by Patricia Deauville and Bob Aglazone. This article talks about how you can use mental imagery when you are reading text, and also how you can use it when you are teaching word problems in math. To teach mental imagery, the article talked about a strategy called the sensory activation model, or in short, the SAM model. This model follows the I do, we do, you do teaching model. First, the teacher models how to create multisensory images in your head. Then, the teacher and students practice creating multisensory images together. And finally, students create multisensory images independently. Two studies were done to show the positive effects of the SAM model. It was done first with fifth graders and then with second graders. The last part of the article touched on the fact that you can also teach students to use mental imagery to help them solve word problems. A quote I like from this article is, just as mental imagery strategies can assist students in stepping into the world, into the text world, in order to actively construct meaning during the reading process, students can also be taught to use mental imagery as a strategy to assist them in stepping into the world of mathematical problem solving. I know most often the mental imagery strategy will be used to help students comprehend stories and books they read. But I like how this article shows that no matter what the subject is or what the students read, mental imagery can be used to help students comprehend and better understand what they read. The third research article I read was titled A Picture's Worth 1,000 Words, Using Visual Images to Improve Comprehension for Middle School Struggling Readers by Anna Hibbing and Joan Rankin Erickson. This article is about how students are surrounded by visual images via TV, internet, movies, and illustrated text. Just because a student is surrounded by this much imagery does not mean they can create images in their head to help them comprehend what they read. Sometimes students are reliant on those images to represent what they are watching or looking at. They have a hard time creating mental images because they might also have a hard time creating mental images because they are too focused on decoding the words, or they have limited vocabulary and background knowledge on the subject. Students need to be reminded often to focus on creating mental imagery. In this case, if their picture is missing or is fuzzy, it is okay to use visual images to help students comprehend what they read and clear up any confusion, and this will make their comprehension of the text even stronger. Now steps on how to teach mental imagery were outlined in 2 research articles I read and an article online from the Reading Rockets website. I'm mixing these 3 articles I read because each article has strong steps to teach mental imagery, but I decided to combine all 3 because I thought that teaching mental imagery would be stronger if you used bits and pieces of each. I thought the graphic on this slide was a good representation of mental imagery. It shows that some people struggle with creating mental images and need to be taught how to do it. It also shows that everyone's mental image will be different because everyone has different life experiences and background knowledge about all subjects. Now as you can see, I outlined many steps to teach mental imagery. In my opinion, I would not do these all in one day. I would do them over several days or even a few weeks because you want to give students lots of opportunity to practice mental imagery before you have them go off and do it on their own. Step number 1 is to select a read-aloud book or passage with vivid and rich language. Before you read, introduce new vocabulary, words to students, and share photos and websites that might help them set the stage. Ask students to share step number 3. Ask students to share examples of movies based on books they have read or seen. Talk about the difference between reading books and watching the movie. Explain that as we read, our imagination creates brain movies to help us better understand what we are reading. Step number 4. As you read to your students, model how to create brain movies in their head by visualizing the characters, setting, and action. Read with inflection in your voice and emphasize the vivid, concrete language of the text or passage. Stop after a few sentences or even paragraphs to explain the brain movie you are creating. Talk about what words in the story helped you create your brain movie. Also, you could possibly stop and give your students opportunities to share the brain movie they are creating. Have them tell you what they see, hear, taste, smell, and feel. Step number 5. Explain how students' experience help them relate to the story and create brain movies. This is activating background knowledge. Ask, how are the characters like them or the people they know? How are they different? How is the setting in the story similar or different to where they live or even places they visited? Talk about how your brain movie is different from the brain movie your teacher is creating, and that's okay because everyone has different experiences and background knowledge that link on to help them comprehend what they are reading. Number 6, this time as you read a second book or passage, work together with students to create brain movies by reminding them to visualize the characters, setting, and action. Stop after a few sentences or paragraphs to be able to talk about the brain movie you are creating together and what phrases or words in the story helped you create your brain movie. Step number 7. Now, as you read a third story, have students create brain movies independently in your head as you read to them. After you finish reading, pause for a few moments to allow students to finish creating their brain movie. Allow students to share their favorite image or scene and identify words or phrases that help them create the particular image in their head. Step number 9. Emphasize and reinforce that when people visualize or make a brain movie of what they read, it helps them understand and remember the story better. And lastly, step number 10, encourage the students to continue making brain movies in their head as they read stories independently, and help them choose interesting books at their level that they'll be able to use to practice making brain movies. In the textbook Reading Assessment by Melissa Farrell from RDG 538, there is a chapter about reading comprehension. In this chapter, it lists several ways to assess this aspect of reading. One way to assess reading comprehension is by using closed and maze passages. Both are very similar but have slight differences. The maze assessment is where sentences or even a passage have words missing, and the students have choices of what words to put in each blank. The closed is similar, where it also has sentences or a passage with words missing, but this time students have no choices of what words to put in the blank, and they have to come up with words on their own. Another way to assess reading comprehension is by having students retell the story. An example of this would be doing the retell part of a Dibbles oral reading fluency passage. Or you can simply ask students to retell the story of whatever they have just read, or maybe even a story that you just read. A third way to assess reading comprehension is by asking questions about the text, about the text you have read. I remember learning recently that there are 3 great types of questions to ask. Within the text questions are questions where the answer lies in the text. Beyond the text questions are questions where readers use their background knowledge to make inferences or even make connections to the text. About the text questions are where readers notice and analyze the structure and crafts that the author used. In the article, Using Mental Imagery Across the Curriculum, it lists tips and strategies to help teachers implement mental imagery in their classroom. Do not assume that all students can create mental images in their head as they read. Have a discussion with students to figure out their level of creating mental images as they read. Encourage those who can create mental images to continue doing it, and teach the strategy to those who do not know how to create mental images as they read. Look for lots of opportunities to model creating mental images in your brain as you read. Provide background knowledge or new vocabulary so students can link previous knowledge to the new knowledge they are learning. Use methods such as teacher drawings or even pictures from the internet to help clear up any confusion and help students better comprehend the text. Sometimes students may not have all the background knowledge they need to comprehend the text, or their image may even be fuzzy. A picture may be just what they need to connect the pieces and better comprehend what they are reading. Help students understand the images they are creating in their heads and how it will help them understand what they are reading, remember the important information, and even make inferences about what will happen next. Use mental imagery in ways that will help students with their learning. Let students know the purpose and reason to why mental imagery is important. In conclusion, mental imagery is the ability to make pictures or even a movie in your head as you are reading. This strategy helps students better understand and comprehend what they read. In the article, Training the Mind's Eye, it gave some ways to explore and find more information on mental imagery. 2 articles by the International Reading Association were listed. One article was titled, Teaching Young Readers Imagery and Storytelling. What Color is the Monkey? This article can be found in the Reading Teacher magazine in the September 2010 issue. A second article mentioned was, What's a Teacher to Do? Suggestions for a Comprehension Strategy Instruction. And this article can also be found in the Reading Teachers magazine in the April 2007 issue. Another Another place to find more information on mental imagery is by going to the readwritethink.org website. And on that website, they have lots of lesson plans, and they even have one for mental imagery. And it's titled Visualizing Using the Sketch-to-Sketch Strategy by Sarah Dennis Shaw. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the reading comprehension strategy, mental imagery. On this slide are the articles, books, and websites I used to help get my information for my presentation.